Wait, is this just Gate? Part 2. A story by user PepperAntique. James woke up to a melody that he had known for years now. One that a good percentage of modern cell phone owning people would know, and likely hate. Or at least smart, non-iPhone using people would know it. It was his alarm. 0500 in the morning. Time to get ready for PT and whatever duty followed. It was also time for him to wake up hungover as shit. Something that the loud melody of his phone was not helping with. He had a migraine that could kill a man. Then he remembered that he was an NTC, and that if he and his boys had gotten so wasted that he could sport a hangover, then he probably needed to get up and get unhungover ASAP. That way he could attempt to do some damage control. Who knows? If he works fast, he might even find out that there's nothing to worry about. Coffee first, IV from Doc second, figure out how badly you fucked up third. Actually, probably need to at least throw on some underwear first, he thought. Wait a minute. I only sleep naked when I get laid. And why is this bed so soft? Oh god, this isn't a cot with a whoopee. James opened his eyes and launched himself to his feet. What he saw brought back the memories he had assumed were some fucked up nightmare. Standing in front of him was a nearly 7-foot-tall thing. Thing was all James's brain could quantify it as. It definitely couldn't be the thing his brain wanted to call it. Because that was crazy. Those things didn't actually exist. And yet, here one was, holding his cell phone in its hand. Though hand might not be accurate. Could be a claw or paw or who knows what this thing calls it. Oh fuck it, let's address the elephant in the room, James thought. That's a fucking werewolf. That's a fucking werewolf the size of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and it's holding my cell phone. Actually acknowledging what it very clearly was did not make James feel any better. Without even realizing what he was doing, James jumped over the bed that he'd just gotten out of and took cover behind it. The werewolf finally noticed his stirring and looked over at him. It took a stance that James recognized as a fighting stance. It put its hand to its side, resting on the pommel of a sword. Oh, come on, the werewolf has a fucking sword? Wait, a sword? Oh, fuck. It's wearing armor, too. At least it was wearing some armor. Its upper arms and legs were armored, but its chest had been wrapped in bandages. It began walking towards James, hand gripping the sword, and the other hand was a now silent phone. It'll just go off again in 10 minutes, James thought. The monster held out the phone to him. What is this music glass? Is it some kind of sorceress device? It asked in a deep, rumbling voice. Oh, fuck me. You fucking talk? James replied. At this point, he was practically curled up into a ball in the corner of the room. He didn't remember moving there. He'd been too focused on the werewolf. Maybe later. And of course I talk. Everyone talks. Tell me what this is. With its offhand, the one that had previously been gripping the sword, it grabbed the side of the bed and pushed it. It was, James had noticed, roughly a queen-sized bed. It was also made of solid wood, and, he thought, fairly well made. And this werewolf that could talk had just slid it across the room as easily as he might push aside a rolling chair. The werewolf was now leaning down, holding the phone in front of him, maybe a foot or two away. He could feel the warm breath coming from its nostrils, could smell the fur. And vanilla? He swallowed hard. He was shaking. What the hell was going on? What is this? It asked, its hand moving down to its sword again. It's just a phone, he replied. He'd never felt more scared in his life. My phone. That noise was just my alarm clock. The werewolf stood up, a small smirk on its face. So it can speak and it has its memories intact. Good. I had worried that Yalter's strike might have caused some brain damage. What in the ass was a Yalthar, was all James could think. So, the werewolf continued. What is your name, human? James. Are you actually a werewolf? He asked. Ah, you know of us? Amazing. Some of us must have plane-walked to your world at some point in the past. Wonder how they did it. It held its hand to its chin and thought. Maybe the moon mages. They might know. Excuse me, what the fuck is going on? James interrupted. Oh, right. The werewolf stood up taller. Mr. James, I am Knight Captain Kella of the Petrevian Guard. You have been summoned to help our kingdom in a time of need. Kella's face became somewhat shameful. Or at least James thought it was shameful. It was hard to tell with the fur, but he thought Kella might be blushing. Also, since you have bested me in battle, technically I'm now a part of your pack. Part of my pack? bested you in battle. What are you? And then James remembered. He looked at the bandages on Kella's chest. You were the one I shot? Yes. Luckily the projectiles weren't Before James could think, he had charged the massive werewolf and tackled them. He was furious and began punching the monster in the ribs as hard as he could. His tackle hadn't brought it down, but he had it on its back leg and was using what little he'd learned in combatives to try to get its other leg out from under it. You killed Sergeant Odie. I'll fucking kill you. He began punching the beast's ribs. It felt like punching a set of iron bars wrapped in a fur coat. He had a family. He began kicking at the knee of the unyielding leg. Motherfucker. Suddenly, he felt a large, clawed hand grab the back of his neck. And suddenly, he was being lifted up off his feet. He wasn't done, though. He began grabbing at the hand and kicking with all his strength at the werewolf's stomach as he rose. Please, stop, Mr. James. I'm still recovering and the bruises still hurt quite a bit. It held his right foot and lifted it up, so that James was now sideways in the air, roughly 5 feet off the ground. Besides, without Silver, your attacks are all but useless anyways. Just annoying, really. James looked it in the eyes. For the first time, he noticed the way they were bright green in color. Almost neon lime, with dark brown sclera. You killed Odie, and I don't know what the fuck you did to Batty, but his fucking leg was cut off. The werewolf looked away for a moment, thinking, and then it looked back. I'm very sorry about your comrades. For what it's worth, I did not summon the portal. I do not have that ability. It seemed to consider its next words carefully. As for the one I killed, I know it may be difficult to accept, but they were already dead. I could sense it the moment I got the window out of my way. My strike was not one of malice, but of mercy. What the fuck are you talking about? James asked, still struggling against his lupine captor. His back was broken. He must not have been properly braced when the contraption you were in fell. Additionally, he had flesh rot in his liver. Even if his back hadn't been injured, he would have only lasted maybe another year. The werewolf gave a deep sniff. My nose, hell, any werewolf's nose could have been able to smell it from miles away. That put a stop to his struggling. James didn't recognize the term, but he knew what Kella was talking about. He relapsed? That made sense, actually. Shit, he told me they cleared that stuff out years ago at his last base. Can I put you down now? I don't think my mate would appreciate me having a penis dangling in front of my face for this long, least of all a human's. In his anger, James had completely forgotten about his nudity. He couldn't help but blush while he quickly reached down to cover himself up. Yeah, please do, he replied. Kella did, and he quickly walked over to the displaced bed and wrapped himself in a blanket. Just in time, too, as the door to the room swung open. When it did, the most beautiful woman James had ever seen in his life walked in and walked straight towards him. Whoa, she's fucking gorgeous, was the last thing he could think before she punched him in the face. If you're new here, welcome aboard. Check out the description for the story, and join the Discord if you like. Consider supporting the channel and the author as well. It's a dangerous world out there, but remember to be brave and look up to seek the stars.